Welcome to the Tay and Todd Washington Commanders podcast brought to you by Fansided and Todd. We are at the aftermath of the NFL Draft 2024, and we have a franchise quarterback. Todd, how you feeling?
I'm honestly somewhat at a loss for words. This is just a brand new feeling. I mean, honestly, 2012 is like the closest, I felt like this, but that was 12 years ago. I was a totally different person back then. Like I was a child back then. So to be a grown adult after 12 years of just all this chaos and drama, and then the fact that you didn't just get the quarterback with Dan Snyder and some bad head coach. You got the new owner, the new GM, the new head coach, the new offensive coordinator, and the top 2 pick quarterback all in the same offseason, basically. That is phenomenal. There is so much hope and potential for the future, more than there's ever been. So I'm just like, I'm through the roof, and I don't have any high expectations for this season. I'm just so excited to not have to worry about or think about quarterback for hopefully the next 12 to 15 years. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. Just hearing you make that statement, not have to worry about quarterback for the next 12 to 15 years, man. That's just something that I'm really looking forward to, man. And I'm feeling great. I think the draft was phenomenal. I'm excited to get into these picks.
Yeah. I mean, let's do it. Let's not waste any time. Let's just go right into it. And let's start off with the number 2 pick in the draft. Quarterback number 5, Jayden Daniels. Tell me, just talk to me about him. We thought he was the pick, but we went back and forth. He turned out to be the pick, and he turned out to seemingly be the unquestioned pick for them. Like they according to Adam Peters, he was the number 1 guy for them. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn said it best. They said he'll snatch your souls on third and long, and he's one of those guys that you have to account for. I remember Micah Parsons saying something with Stroud the other day and just talking about how leading up to the game against the Eagles and how they had to watch film on Jalen Hurts scrambling and how he despised having to go against him. And now he gets his own player that can stretch the field horizontally, vertically. And I'm just pumped, man. He's a good guy, character, low key, not the main character. I think we got the right one.
Yeah. One thing, I think maybe the main thing that stood out to me at his press conference was when someone asked him about the pressure he feels, being a part of this franchise, being the face of a franchise, is it pressure? And he said, no, it's not pressure. And, hearing him say that, right? If that's true, that's really how he feels. That's pretty meaningful in my opinion, because it is a lot of pressure. Like, the organization is like essentially on his back. Everyone expects him to solve a problem that's existed here for years. But if he's saying, I mean, it's just a position that God put me in, and I'm just ready to get to work and do the work. And he apparently was legendary at LSU for the amount of work he put in and how consistent he was with his work. I mean, if that's true, and if he really is not feeling that's phenomenal. And what was one of the biggest kind of things that stood out to me that didn't have anything to do with throwing the football, but just the mental side of things, where I questioned some of it with Drake May and had some of those concerns with Jayden Daniels, that he seemed to have the mental fortitude, and based on the way he's talking, he does. So that really stood out to me. I mean, everyone's seen the highlights. Everyone's seen all the plays. We know what he can do. We know that he was in college for 5 years. We've seen some of the career numbers, the pressure to sack ratio, and the scramble rate and throws off schedule versus all that stuff. At the end of the day, he has all the tools physically and mentally to succeed. So that's all you can ask for. And now it's just on the organization to surround him with what he needs. I'm hoping that to start, he has what he needs, and that Cliff Kingsbury will make it as easy and as simple as possible for him from day one.
Yep. And I agree. I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Heck of a number 2 pick when traded for the world.
Yeah, and it's cool taking the guy that, I mean, was seemingly almost by the draft unanimously the guy who belonged there. It's just really hard to deny what he did this season and how well he played. And I mean, Adam Peters said he was the best number one player on our board. He said once we turned the film on, it was like, wow. I think that they were kind of tipping their hand the whole time with Dan Quinn saying game changer and all that stuff. But, we don't want to read too much into it. But according to Adam Schefter, he wasn't there. He wasn't even on their board there. Like, it was between Jayden Daniels and JJ McCarthy, really just Jayden Daniels, and then confirming that was the pick. Just phenomenal. And with all the talk with him, maybe not wanting to be here and wanting to be with the Raiders and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm sure he wanted to play with Antonio Pierce and all that. But I mean, the kid's going to buy in. He's going to get comfortable. Yeah. They've got good people in there now. They've got good fit football people. Dan Quinn, by all accounts, is like a great players coach, and everybody loves him. So I'm really not worried about that. Based on the statistics, he's got about a 30 to 40% chance to succeed. Like any other guy, I don't think his odds are lower. And I mean, we just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. And if you look making past in recent history, I mean, it seems like the number 2 pick always seems to shine more than the number 1 sometimes, recently at least. So.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure on that number 1 pick. There's probably more pressure on Caleb Williams, supposed to be a generational talent. Yeah. Jayden Daniels is just, come in and just play your game,
Right.
So, yeah, I'm excited, and I just can't wait to, start to see him on the field and preseason, training camp, preseason, regular season, and just this season. The only thing that matters is evaluating him and finding out whether or not he really has the potential in the NFL to be the guy. That's really all that matters. Wins and losses, you hope for him, you hope for the wins, but all that matters this season is Jayden Daniels and some of these other young players. So unless you've got anything else to add to Jayden Daniels, obviously we could probably talk about him all day and move on to the second pick.
Yeah, we can move on to the second pick. For the second pick, we got at pick 36, Johnny Newton, Illinois. Todd, what's your first opinion on him?
So the pick, obviously, I think was kind of surprising, right? Sorry about the buffering. The pick was kind of surprising because it was a luxury pick. I mean, they didn't need a defensive tackle. But when you talk about the value that you're getting from this guy, I mean, Adam Peters said, we can't believe that you're here. We were considering trading up for you. I mean, this guy is a pass rushing defensive tackle. I mean, he is just like, he has the potential to be a game wrecker, in my opinion. Not just that, though. When you combine him with the fact that you've got a coach in Dan Quinn who knows how to use pass rushers correctly and create different looks and disguise things and use, multiple D tackles or defensive ends or linebackers to rush the quarterback. I mean, I don't know if there's a better spot for this guy to end up. And if you look at the secondary, which, is maybe the weaker equation here, well, then if you have a weak secondary, the best thing you can do is bulk up and strengthen your defensive line. I think this guy, I mean, he's phenomenal. I cannot believe he was there at 36. Like I said, I was kind of surprised, but this is not a Phidarian Mathis pick. Phidarian Mathis, you took him when you didn't have a position of need at defensive tackle, but he was a reach. Johnny Newton is an incredible value. He had, I think, 4 blocked field goals this year. Yeah. So that's how I'm feeling. I know you're feeling great.
Yeah, this was a guy that I didn't think we had a chance. And it's funny, I was talking to one of my friends on Friday, and he was like, "Don't think. You see, I think y'all gonna get Troy Franklin." He said, "I would not be surprised if y'all get a D tackle. Johnny Newton's still out there." And I'm like, "Nah, man, we going corner. We going." And lo and behold, they take Johnny Newton, and
he was
texted me and said, "Man, it's a great pick. Too good to pass up on, man." And after watching film on him, man, the guy is probably our most gifted pass rusher, and the fact that he is versatile and can play on multiple fronts. You see him at the 3 technique, 5 technique, you see him all over the place, and I think that's something that Dan Quinn really loves. Yes, and he's gifted, man.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about having Payne and Allen, but there's no reason you can't have all three of those guys on the field at
Yeah,
the same time.
exactly.
You know, there's no
Exactly.
this guy. He's lined up at the nose tackle position right there. He's not a nose tackle, but he's lined up over the center. And then another play, you see him lined up over the right tackle. And so, I mean, it's just the things you can do. I know that Dan Quinn is going to do a good job. If nothing else, we know that Dan Quinn will do a good job of putting these guys in good positions, in successful positions. So you can never be upset at the value you're getting there. So I'm excited for that one. Anything to add to that? Are you ready to move on to Sainristil?
No, we can move on to Sainristil.
Okay, so Mike Sainristil. This is another guy who they were on the board, right? So this is pick number 50 after they traded back. They were on the board at 40. You've got Cooper DeJean, if that's how you say it. You got Kool-Aid McKinstry, and they trade back. I mean, they didn't really sign. They didn't sign any meaningful cornerbacks. You got Forbes, you've got St. Juice. They get back to 50, and he's on the board here. And I said at the last second, I said it could be Sainristil. This guy, I mean, any draft analyst that you read talking about this guy, they just talk about how much they love him, how great he is, that he's going to be your favorite nickel cornerback's favorite nickel cornerback one day. Like, he's the best player on the best defense in the country. Instinctive, athletic, quick twitch, can cover, can catch the ball. I absolutely love this pick. And in his press conference, he said he can play anywhere, but he said he prefers to be in the nickel because that's just where he feels like. I mean, he's getting a pick outside right here, but prefers to be in the nickel because that's where he can just kind of see the field and read things out best. I think he's a day one stud nickel cornerback.
Oh yeah, and even Adam Peters said he's gonna play the star role. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good, And he's twitchy. He's a gamer. I think someone said that he's the best football player pound for pound in this draft, and to get him at 50, I didn't think it was possible. Yeah, Nick Saban said that. And I remember watching him and how many people raved about him in the national championship game and in the college football playoffs. And I didn't even think this was an option. So to get him, I'm just super pumped, and I'm glad that we got another dog on defense.
Yeah, I love those kind of undersized cornerbacks that go later because they're not 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", but they have as many skills. They're as skilled or more skilled than those guys that just have that. This player right here. Look at this. I mean, that's just insane. This guy's, he's what, 5'8.5", 5'9". Just plays massive. So I think this is a fantastic pick, and I love that they have a philosophy, like for the players they're picking, like they know how they want to use them before they even pick them.
Right.
And they actually have a track record of using players correctly. So this one may be my favorite, obviously, aside from the quarterback, may be my favorite. I love this pick. On to pick number 53. Now, this was one I was proud because I called this one. Well, once Adam Schefter started talking about tight end, right before the pick, I said, okay, it's Sinnott. It's not Sanders. And lo and behold, they end up taking him. He had, I think, the third most missed tackles forced by a tight end. He ran a 4.68, catches the ball, lines up at the H-back, lines up at tight end. Adam Peters said he reminds him of Juszczyk, of George Kittle with the way he blocks and the way he plays. I mean, Zach Ertz, I think, is not making it through 17 games healthy, period. But even aside from that, I think Sinnott is – you took him in the second round. I know that maybe Thor, someone compared him to Laporta, and I mean, you hope that's the case because you would love for him to be a day one security blanket for Jayden Daniels.
Right. Yeah, I love everything about Ben Sinnott. I began watching film on him early in the draft process, and I didn't quite think he was tight end 2. But as we got closer, you hear all the reports and the rumors and how a lot of people had him at tight end 2, and I'm very impressed. He's a dog, size, skill. He can do it all. I thought Jatavion Sanders, there was a lot of smoke with that. But what I've come to find out with this group, if they're not going to leak the number 2 pick, what makes you think they're going to leak the second or the third round pick? So I'm looking forward to this. This is a guy that can grow with Jayden, and I'm really pumped up about this pick. I like the pistol. I think the pistol. I think they're going to be so dynamic with this kid, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the future too.
Yeah, I mean, you just see him catching the ball and breaking away from tackles. And I mean, really, since with Jordan Reed, specifically in Washington,
Yeah,
haven't had a dynamic tight end. I mean, you know, you
right,
had Vernon Davis for a little bit towards the end of his career, but definitely under Ron Rivera. Logan Thomas had a strong first year in 2020, but he wasn't dynamic. He was big and he would catch the ball, but couldn't do much with it once he got it. We haven't had a young,
right.
dynamic tight end,
No, I like
and I
this.
think that's what they got here.
Yeah,
Would you
not
say?
like this. I said not like
No,
this.
no. Right, and I think that they put a lot of value in that. Adam Peters, especially, for a young quarterback, having that in a tight end, and so I think
Yeah,
that's why we saw them go tight end even earlier than we saw them go wide receiver.
right.
And I mean, we know that John Bates is not that guy. Cole Turner, they must not think he's that guy, and Zach Ertz, we know, is a short term thing. Sinnott is I think has potential to be a really solid to very good tight end for the Commanders for years to come. That's
Yeah,
high praise.
yeah.
Talk, say, how does that feel as a player to hear the GM drafted you say you remind me of these two really good players on a really good team, right? Going into that situation,
Yeah,
that's got to excite you. So I
uh,
love this
yeah,
pick because they had to get some support for Jayden. They went back-to-back defensive players, and you had to take them based on the value and the players that they were. But they also had to get some help for the quarterback they took second overall.
yeah, for sure.
On to pick number 67. Now this is the one where everyone was waiting for them to take the tackle, the left tackle, and then they called the name Brandon Coleman from TCU, and we're all kind of like, who is that guy? Right, Rosengarten's gone. Guyton, Jordan Morgan's gone. Tyler Guyton's gone. Sumatoa is gone. If I say it correctly, we hadn't heard much about him, Tay. And
Yeah,
then we saw his Senior Bowl 1-on-1s at guard, and we're like, I don't know. But then you start to see him play left tackle in 2022, and he held it down.
he did.
He was a strong player against Georgia, because TCU had a strong season that year. And I mean, he was holding his own against some really good teams, against Michigan, against Georgia, which this video would play. But tell me what you've learned about Brandon Coleman now that that they picked him and we actually took some time to watch him.
He's a huge upside guy, and one thing I do like about the situation is that they didn't force a tackle at 36. They took the best player available, and then when their board
Yep.
came to 67, they take him. So I like the pick. It's a developmental guy. I would like to see you get a left tackle in there and maybe help him learn a little bit. Maybe get like a DJ Humphreys or somebody, a vet that he can just sit underneath for maybe a year, just a spot starter, and then maybe he can take over that role next year. And then instead of looking for a left tackle in the draft next year, you just plug and play,
Yep.
and then you're looking at right tackle. So I think he was a prospect in a sense where he had the athletic profile. I saw the RAS score, and it had him similar to uh, Trent Williams as far as athletically. I'm not saying that he is Trent Williams, but
Right.
he's athletic and he can move, and he's big. So we'll just see how it pans out. I mean, this group, this coaching staff is big into
Yeah.
developing players. And so that gives me no doubt in my mind that they'll put him in the best position to succeed, whether that's having him at the left guard. He's going to be a powerful left guard. If I mean that job is open, so I mean we'll just have to see.
Yeah,
But
but I
at
mean,
first, initially, I did not like it, but now I see what they're doing.
yeah, and it's all based on what he did in 2022. And we know that Adam Peters said at the press conference that they see him as a tackle,
Right.
and so he'll definitely get his first shot at left tackle. Played hurt last year, apparently, spent some
Hmm.
time at left guard and left tackle, but got the size, huge, I mean, very athletic guy. And so they saw something in him. We're trusting, their ability to evaluate players with Brandon Coleman. And so
For sure.
picking him in the third round, you like to think we might see him on the field sooner than later, especially since there isn't a clear guy in front of him. And then moving on to pick number 100, the last pick that they had in the, of their first 6 picks in the top 100, Luke McCaffrey. This is when Troy Franklin was on the board. Everyone's wondering why he was sliding and whatnot. And this one, McCaffrey was not really on my radar big time. So it kind of surprised me. He's been playing receiver for 2 years after starting in his college career at quarterback. I mean, a very tough player. His helmet came off like every time he caught the ball. Someone was ripping his helmet off. Is good as a route runner, has a solid release package, strong hands, ran 4.4, mid 4.4s, faster than his brother, Christian McCaffrey. And Adam Peters is very familiar with that family. So I think that played a role where he's comfortable betting on the bloodlines on top of the player himself. So I think he starts, my opinion is he starts week 1 on the outside, Dotson in the slot. He can be a big slot. And I think maybe next year, if you get a guy who's a true outside receiver, then McCaffrey bumps into the slot or something. But I think this year he starts outside opposite Terry McLaurin with Dotson in the slot. And I think he'd be a day 1 contributor.
Yeah, I like McCaffrey. Good work ethic. The McCaffrey bloodline. I think they don't pick up Jahan Dotson's option next year, 5th-year option, and I think that he ends up being a big slot. Maybe not this year, but next year he ends up being that big slot with him and Terry on the outside, and they look to replace Jahan Dotson on the outside, but have Luke McCaffrey in the inside. I think this is a good pick. Quarterback's best friend, him and Ben Sinnott, guys that can go over the middle, help that transition. He's fast. Look at him. He's breaking away right here. He's only, like you said, he's only been playing the position for 2 years. Just imagine that upside, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If he's able to do this after 2 years, right? So just imagine how much better he can get. And, Dotson and McLaurin, those are 2 guys who's route runners, release, those are good guys to learn from, learn under, and get better with. So another, I think solid weapon who can grow with Jayden Daniels potentially, and another day 1 contributor. All these guys, right? How many do you, aside from Jayden, or we can include Jayden, how many of them do you think are day 1 starters for the Commanders?
I think all of them are. I think even with Ben Sinnott, I think he's more so of maybe the 2 tight ends, and then by mid-season, he begins to be tight end 1. That's just how I'm looking at it, and that's how I think it should be. But I think we got at least 5 starters out of this draft, in day 1, day 2, and then as we get on day 3, and the next episode will be on day 3 specifically. We'll talk about a couple guys that we like, specifically the linebackers. But I think we got starters on each. I mean, they're top 100 picks. They're 2nd rounders and 3rd rounders. They're supposed to start.
Yeah. I agree.
Johnny Newton may not start. He may not have the label as starter, but he's going to get plenty of playing time. Plenty.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. I think your surefire starters are Jayden Daniels, Mikey Sainristil, and Luke McCaffrey. To me, in my opinion, I think those 3 are first snap 2024 are on the field. I think there's a possibility that Johnny Newton is on there with Payne or Allen, that there's a possibility that Sinnott is on there, and depending on how camp goes for Brandon Coleman, that he's out there. But I think all of them contribute this year. Specifically, I think Coleman is the one I could potentially see sitting the most with the other 5 guys starting or contributing the most. But even Coleman could potentially start early or at some point in the season. So, I mean, and that's what they needed to do with these first 6 picks, was get guys who could help immediately, right? You don't want to put them in a bad spot. You don't want to put them one-on-one against A.J. Brown like Ron Rivera did with Emmanuel Forbes. Like, you want to put them on the field prepared and in a good, favorable situation. But I think they got 6 guys who will definitely contribute immediately or start immediately. And I'm excited. I think they had a really solid draft, and you look around in the draft world, lots of people would agree. And so, I mean, going into this year, the main thing is just seeing how Jayden Daniels first, and then some of these other guys develop, because, if things go well and you win 8-9 games and you sneak into the playoffs as a 7 seed, or sure, that's fantastic. But even if you win 5-6 games, 5-6-7 games, but some of these guys show real potential to be great players for you going forward. You have another strong draft, another strong free agency going into the following season, and then you can really start to do some damage. So I think they nailed the draft. I'm very excited about how they managed this draft and the players they picked.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year, you're basically playing with house money. So
Right.
we just
Exactly.
want to see focus on Jayden and his improvement. And I'm pumped. I love every single pick. I mean, it's night and day difference from the last regime, and I'm just pumped up for it.
Absolutely. Next episode, we'll talk about the last three guys who got picked, three defensive guys on day
Hmm.
3, and so just be on the lookout for
And some
that. But
UDFA's, I guess we could talk about a couple UDFA's that we like also.
right, yes, definitely. That's a good point to add. So day 3 / undrafted free agents touch on next episode. This episode all about day 1 and day 2 and the guys who are going to be playing early and often probably. Exciting times ahead, Tay. Let's do this more often. That's all
Yes, sir.
I've got. You have anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, until we talk again, I'm Todd.
This take.
Thank you for watching.